It's time for another Out of Bounds Rewind with Bo Bounds on ESPN 105.9, The Zone.
All right, so after the article that you dropped on Cohen to Auburn, NIL, Lane Train, and what he told you, which I thought that question was great, what most coaches or all coaches are going to ask going forward. What is your NIL model structure? Basically, how much money do you have in the bank so that I can go get players and talent? Did MSU fans have a reason to be upset with you over the article?
I guess so. Now in hindsight, I guess so. I certainly got some riled up. It appears.
Yes, you did.
I did. and I really, I'll be honest, I was, and I probably shouldn't be, but I was surprised. I didn't think, Bo, that I was breaking a whole lot of news by saying that a Mississippi State athletic director was moving to another school for more resources, right? And I didn't think I was breaking a whole lot of news saying that Mississippi State was behind other SEC programs in NIL. I've been covering this NIL for, Bo, about 3.5 years or so, even before it was implemented. And I feel like I talked to enough people in the NIL industry, not in Starkville, not in Mississippi State, just around the NIL industry. And, they have a good idea of who's doling out the most NIL, right? And it's been pretty clear that Mississippi State was struggling in that area. And I had no idea that was something that was big breaking news that would set off and strike a chord. But you know what? I get it. I see how others interpret it, which is, in AD, even though I didn't quote him at all, obviously, John Cohen, or cite him in any way, but maybe using that as the reason, when all I was trying to do was explain the situation and why, a third athletic director in a row would leave Mississippi State. And it's for more resources. And in this era of NIL, it's for more NIL. You have better NIL, right? You have more NIL, you get better players, and you can have a better compete for a championship.
How do you, Ross Dellenger, Sports Illustrated, does a good job covering college football. Was here in the state of Mississippi not too long ago, bounced around now nationally with SI and Sports Illustrated. How many of the numbers that you're getting and we're getting, I'll use an example in a minute, but I want to get your thoughts. How many of the numbers do you think that are inflated? Whether it's some of the big eye-popping numbers that prospects are getting or are not, and some of the numbers that are being floated by programs as far as, hey, we have 11, 12, 13, 15 million in NIL?
Yeah, great question. I think a lot of this probably are inflated. And it is why I try to talk to people independent of schools, not affiliated with schools, who know finances. There are people in the NIL kind of industry that handle school NIL for them, third-party types. I try to talk to them to kind of ascertain better numbers, because the school is, of course, going to inflate its numbers, right? Like, Auburn has announced that its collective has announced that it's got at least, I think it's 12 or more than $12 million in NIL. Well, is that cash on hand, or is that pledges?
Yeah.
Right. And because it's a big difference, and administrators, right, athletic administrators know very well, because they've been fundraising. They do this have done this for decades. When you get pledges, it's one thing. Some of those pledges sometimes don't come through, and I think that has happened. So it is hard to tell, what numbers are real and what numbers are not, because we don't have really public access to those numbers. They're not subject really to a whole lot of public record. Some of them are in certain schools, and we've seen that. We've seen some public record stuff come out with A&M, for instance. I think it was $4.5 million spread around to its athletes. And that's around the ballpark that you see is anywhere from, at the top level of Power 5 is $3 to $5 million spread around each year, or this past year, I guess it was the first year of NIL, to an athletic department. Now, a lot of that $3 to $5 million, right, it's going to football players,
right?
But so we know some. It is tough though. You hear things thrown out from coaches. Hey, we got to raise $13 million. We got to raise $15 million. I was just up at Ole Miss a month ago, right, and they consolidated their collectives. A lot of it was from an aggressive, push by Lane Kiffin, and they're hoping to get, I think it's $5 million a year. They're hoping to raise $5 million a year, and that's one note I want to make too, and because I know I was getting this, this reaction from the story of, the outgoing AD was the problem in NIL fundraising, like that. It's his problem, and he's leaving it. The biggest NIL, I think, collectives are independent of the athletic department, right? It's boosters, big boosters and donors getting themselves together. A lot of lawyers, right, involved in that, a lot of boosters who are lawyers, and it's running a collective. It's getting everything together. It's pooling stuff. It is independent from the athletic department. I can tell you, I've spent enough time around these collectives that is true. It's not up to the AD. It's not up to the coach. Now, is it good for the AD and coach to be in support of this? Of course.
Oh, they can drive the train, as you know, behind the scenes, Ross.
Absolutely.
Which is what Lane,
like some of the bigger ones,
has done.
Yeah, Lane is a good example. Absolutely. You need your football coach. That's important in Starkville, right? You need your football coach to be on board with this and to drive it behind the scenes. But some of the biggest ones, they are completely independent from the AD coach. And I look at Tennessee, for one, completely independent. In fact, there's been some issues between Tennessee's collective and the athletic department because they don't work together all the time. So you've got to have your football coach and your AD on board, maybe maneuvering aggressively behind the scenes. But, man, more importantly, you've got to have fans and boosters step up on their own, get together, and do it. And maybe, Mississippi State's my alma mater. I want to see it do well. And maybe this is a little bit of a wake-up call. And I've communicated with the Mississippi State NIL. And I'll say, right when that story published yesterday, I had a figure in there of Mississippi State having not gotten to the $1 million mark in NIL. And somebody from State's NIL quickly messaged me to give me more information. And I got in there as quick as I could to change that. I wanted to change that as quick as possible. So they're getting there. And it seems like there's an outside kind of counsel, a third party that's handling their stuff. So maybe this is a little bit, Bo, of a wake-up call to get going.
Yeah, and Ross, you're right. The Bulldog Initiative has over 7 figures, but I like where you're going because, we've raised money for the Boys and Girls Club and Friends of Children's Hospital, and it's totally different when somebody pledges 6 figures compared to when they write you a check on the spot. And that is something to look at.
Don't miss one moment of the Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. Weekdays, 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. on ESPN 105.9. The Zone.